Hello and welcome to the Hangout Café where we're all about youth and development. My name is Makazi Nombia.
The host Joseph Nja, and today we're discussing a very serious topic, and the topic in itself is mental health with specific attention to what depression is.
We had mentioned this topic previously on our channel and we received a lot of feedback on the same, so we felt the need to expound more on it. And I'm glad that we are part of this conversation and that the topic on mental health is gaining a lot of traction in this country, because we really need to raise awareness and reduce the stigma surrounding the same. We believe that our mental and psychological well-being will enable us to contribute actively to our communities. So, what is mental health?
According to the World Health Organization, mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. It is an integral part of health, and in some there is no health without mental health. In addition, mental health is determined by a range of socio-economic, biological and environmental factors that in turn there should be an extensive and cost-effective public health and intersectoral strategies and interventions to promote, protect and restore mental health. Also, according to the World Health Organization's constitution, health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not just merely the absence of a disease. Furthermore, mental health is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disability. It actually is a state. Now, it is a state of well-being in which one realizes his or her own abilities and how to cope with the normal stresses of life, and also how one can work productively, making genuine contributions to society. The most important thing to note, however, is that mental health is fundamental to our collective and also individual ability to not only think, emote, interact, but also to earn a living and enjoy life. It is thus absolutely paramount for us to keenly nurture and care for our mental health, as it is in its essence has the capacity to affect our daily lives in an undeniable fashion. It is not just enough to know about mental health. This realization, however, actually introduces a new perspective or a new question. How well do we understand what mental health is? The concept of mental health is more relevant now than ever before, and this is due to the stressful living conditions we currently are living through due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But aside from that, let us put this concept into perspective. According to the WHO, as many as 450 million people suffer from mental or behavioral disorder. Nearly 1 million people commit suicides every year. 4 out of the 6 leading causes of years lived with disability are due to neuropsychiatric disorders, examples being depression, alcohol use disorders, and even schizophrenia, or also bipolar disorders. 1 in 4 families has at least one member who has a mental disorder. And to further elaborate on this, families in this case are usually the primary care providers of their members who have mental disorders, which is very significant, and it greatly impacts the family's quality of life. The health and social costs for those suffering with mental illnesses are high.
According to the World Health Organization, people with mental health conditions often experience severe human rights violations, discrimination, and stigma. Therefore, don't be quick to dismiss anyone who comes to you with an issue, especially a mental health issue, because you never know, you may have been there last week.
Now, having gone through all that, there's a thought that pops into mind, and it brings with it a very heavy question. What are the different types of mental health disorders or illnesses? While trying to get an answer to this, I came across a book named The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Disorders. Now, this book is used by health practitioners to help identify and diagnose mental illnesses. According to this, DSM Volume 5, mental health disorders are in groups. And some of these groups actually include mood disorders, which include depression or even bipolar disorders, anxiety disorders, personality disorders, psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, eating disorders, trauma-related disorders such as PTSD, and even substance abuse disorders. With that in mind, let us address as a start one of the mental health conditions that are very alive to us, especially at this moment. And as such, let us look into depression. Depression is a common mental disorder. Usually, it presents itself with a depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure, decreased energy, feeling of guilt or low self-worth, disturbed sleep or appetite, and poor concentration. In addition, depression comes with symptoms of anxiety, and as such, it is important to note that these problems can become chronic or recurrent and may lead to substantial impairment of your ability to take care of your everyday responsibilities. It is also worth noting that at its worst, depression could lead to suicide, and as we've just explored, about 1 million lives are lost yearly due to suicides. This roughly translates to about 300,000 suicide deaths each day. Equally, for every person that successfully completes a suicide attempt, 20 or more have actually been attempted on people's lives. These are grim statistics. But how exactly does depression manifest itself? Well, a depression episode involves symptoms such as depressed moods, loss of interest or enjoyment, increased fatigability, which means a feeling of being tired almost all the time, and also depending on the severity of the depressive episode, which can be classified as mild, moderate, or severe. An individual with a mild depressive episode, for example, will have difficulty in continuing with ordinary work and social activities, but he or she will be able to continue social activities or domestic activities, but to a very limited extent. And now, so, what causes depression? Researchers have found that there are 4 different parts of our daily lives that have the capacity and the capability to induce a depressive episode, or in short, cause depression. These parts are 1, your thoughts, 2, your emotions, 3, your physical state, or 4, your actions. Now, these parts equally have the capability to affect each other. In essence, the way one does act indeed changes one's situation. The way you think can cause a change in a feeling. In addition, the way you feel actually can change your physical state, and so on. So there is a definite correlation across the board with deep regard to the mentioned part of our daily lives. Now, usually, depression starts with a stressful situation. Examples being, for example, let's say losing of a friend, poor school or work performance, conflict with a person, or even loneliness. But in context, taking into account the examples that I've just covered, if as an individual you feel that you're actually in the same boat with these scenarios, and while you are doing everything you can to solve the issue, but there's an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, then you may be depressed. Therefore, let's take into account the daily parts of our lives and break them down. For a start, let's tackle thoughts. Each of us has our own unique way of thinking, especially with regard to situations and in extent how these situations affect how we feel. Generally, people usually think or often think about the situations and they think about themselves in a negative side, which brings itself a negative, which means that your thoughts are negatively distorted. The line of thoughts only exaggerates a situation, and therefore it actually ignores any positive event in the process. So you're majorly negative instead of, even though it's like a negative feeling, there are also positive events happening around. To add on this, the very aspect of emotions, emotions in itself bring into fore a different dynamic. With this, depression usually begins with a feeling of discouragement or even sadness. If this gets worse, a person does fall, and thus he or she is consumed with hopelessness, and one feels as though there's no enjoyment in the things that he or she used to love at a point in time. If this circumstance gets worse, an individual may feel as though they are numb and not feeling this and no feeling at all, and this therefore becomes a very difficult position to be in. But when we take into account the physical states of our daily lives, we discover that depression often includes different types of physical problems. That one, you may not have even considered them to be part of physical manifestations of depression. Among these physical problems may include difficulty in sleeping, loss of appetite or energy, or even difficulty in concentrating, which leads us to the fourth aspect of our lives, and that is action. While we are on the subject of action, depression eventually will alter a person's action, and this can be manifested as 1. Withdrawing from family and friends, 2. Not taking care of yourself, and 3. Not engaging in enjoyable exercises. So what can you do in this case? Well, you can do the following. 1. You can talk to family and trusted friends about how you're feeling. 2. You can write about what you're facing, your feelings, your thoughts about the situation, and possible solutions to the problem, which can help you get an understanding of what you're going through and the choices that you have. 3. You can speak the truth to a health practitioner or profession, and they can help by guiding you through what you're facing and help you figure out what has been going on and how you can get through it. 4. You can also learn new skills for thinking and acting more effectively. This is known as cognitive behavioral therapy and can be recommended by a health professional. 5. You can also perform self-monitoring. This is especially important because knowing yourself and what you're feeling and how to express yourself is important. 6. One can also learn to be more realistic in your thoughts and emotions, one can also learn how to be more realistic, and therefore one's thoughts and emotions will become less negatively impacted, and then reducing the chances of depression. 7. One can learn how to become more active in order to keep on refreshing one's mood, and thus making it easy to manage depression. Look, the above is not textbook at handling depression, but it is an attempt at shining the light at what is becoming a silent killer among our generation. Slowly and silently, many of us are suffering from one or another form of mental disorder, whether it is mild, moderate, severe, as we have seen earlier. But indeed, if we take up the mantle and be each other's confidant, especially at this time, we can save many of our brothers and sisters currently tormented while battling through depression or any other form of mental disorder.
So, talking about it and actually educating myself about it has been a really empowering experience for me, and I encourage you to do the same. Have more candid conversations with your loved ones and purpose to live a more wholesome life.
There's a concept of passing it on. Doing a good deed to a stranger as an act of goodwill and passing it on and so on. This is the most opportune moment to do just that. May your act of goodwill be listening and counseling an individual who seems to be struggling through one of the various forms of mental health disorders. If the above is not possible, you can always pass important information on how to deal with mental health out so that a person who needs it most can get help. Among such information may be helplines that a person can call in order to be helped or to be listened to. Let those who require an accommodative atmosphere and time to air what is weighing them down have the ability to access these services, and in turn, they find relief. So this has been the Hangout Café with me, your host, Joseph Njao. I hope that you've learned a lot. I hope that I've been able to effectively address the issue of depression, and I hope that some of the strategies and some of the things that I've highlighted are very important, or they can be able to help you if you're going through a depressive state. Also, don't forget to comment and give other ideas that you may have, especially with regard to depression, and let us continue the message. Let's continue spreading the message, and let us continue having a conversation so that people can be able to get the help that they deserve. Awesome.
Thank you for watching, and see you next time.